So my dude's Valk here, and today I'm going to be trying to at least attempt to explain Hu Tao very simply, trying to make a quick video on her so you guys can understand how she plays and how she does everything, because I know today there was a really big Hu Tao leak drop. If you guys are in the Discord, you can see it in the Leaks and Spoilers channel, but yeah, I'm going to be reading this off Honey Hunter World, and I'm going to leave a link in my pinned comment below as well as the description of the video. So please show them support, as always, for providing us with awesome closed beta test data mines so we can get this information. And I'll give you guys an idea. I'm going to TLDR some of her stuff because it's really long paragraphs. I'll try to explain how she works and everything going through it. But yeah, the very first thing, at level 90, she has 15.5k base HP. That is definitely a significant amount, because you can see Xiao has 12.7k, so she has a solid amount more, like around 2k more. She's definitely going to have the highest base HP in the game, which is really important because she's going to benefit a lot from HP percent, as we're going to show later on. So that's really important. The next thing that's super interesting, she only has 106 base attack, which is by far the lowest in the game. That's somewhere like Xiao has 349 base attack. You can't see it because base attack is the weapon plus your base attack. Xiao has 349 base attack, so that's somewhere a third of Xiao's. Like this, I'm not comparing her to Xiao. I'm just using Xiao as like a metric so you guys can understand. Xiao has the highest base attack in the game, so that's the big difference. But there's a reason for that. There's a reason her base attack is really low, and the reason you're going to want either 5-star weapon or a weapon with base attack that we're going to get into later on, I'll explain then. Then we're going to skip over defense because defense is whatever as a stat, and I think unless a character scales off defense like Albedo or Noelle, you don't really need to worry about defense. And then she gets 38.4% crit damage off of her Ascension stat, off of her leveling from Ascension. So you always start with 50% base crit damage in your build, and then she's going to get 38.4% extra crit damage from the Ascension alone. Let me go ahead and show this, since this is going to be kind of the setup I'm around on her. So first we're going to get into her normal attacks. Her multipliers are not really super high. They're somewhere around like a little bit higher than Xingling's multipliers. They're good. The main multiplier at level 10, her charge attack is 243%. That's pretty good. It's a really good. It's going to be like she's going to do a mix of normals and charge attacks. I'll explain later on. But yeah, her normal attack chain is a 6-hit, and she has a charge attack very similar to Xingling's. And the charge attack is going to be very important as we get into the kit here in a second. But yeah, basically, like I said, I'm not trying to get too into the math. I'm just trying to TLDR Hu Tao for everybody, so you guys can decide whether you want to start saving her, gathering the materials for her or not. Just trying to TLDR this all. So basically, she has okay multipliers on her normals and stuff. It's nothing groundbreaking. It's not insane. It's somewhere like Kuching. Like if you compare Kuching has kind of okay multipliers on her normals, but a very high charge multiplier. So it's somewhere like that. She has okay multipliers, but then we're going to get into her E or her R2, her skill here in a second, Hu Tao's skill, and that's going to be the most important part. Like I said, I'm going to leave a description all below so you guys can read the book that is Hu Tao if you want to, but her skill is very long, so I'm going to give you the TLDR. Her skill is an activatable stance that whenever you activate, it lasts for 10 seconds. It converts her HP at a percentage that increases with level ups into attack. And it can only convert up to 400% of her base attack, which is why I said that your weapon's base attack really matters. It can only convert up to 400% of her base attack into attack. So that's really important. And then charge attacks inside, whenever she's in stance, using a charge attack applies Blood Blossom. What Blood Blossom is, mark an enemy with Blood Blossom is basically a bleed effect, and it makes it where enemies take pyro damage every 4 seconds, and the pyro damage once again scales up with the E. Now, if we look at it at level 10, it's going to convert up to 6.26% max HP into it. It has a 30% HP cost because as we get further into her kit, you're going to see that she kind of wants to be on low HP, and then the Blood Blossom damage goes all the way up to 115, and it is Blood Blossom lasts for 8 seconds, so you can get 2 ticks out of it. It's pretty good. The duration of the stance itself is 9 seconds. I know I said 10, but 9 seconds, basically the same thing. Then it's a 16-second cooldown, so she's going to have 7 seconds where you're going to want somebody else doing things. Basically, 15%, or not 15, 50% of the time, she's going to be an absolute monster. So then we go into Spirit Soother, her ult. What it basically does is the lower her HP is, the more damage it deals and the more it heals her. So basically she deals like a wide swing, like that. She deals like a wide swing, and in that AoE, it deals at level 10, at normal, it is 493.95, below 50% HP, it's 617% multiplier. This is why, like I said, you want to be low HP with her. It would heal 10.2% of your max HP. There's a big difference. The skill costs current HP. This heals for max HP. And then below 50% HP, it would heal for 14% of your max HP, or 13.6%. It's a 60 energy cost, not bad at all, and it's a 15-second cooldown. So it's really not that bad. It's going to be something you're probably going to be able to keep up pretty often, especially with her being a sub DPS. If you run double pyro, odds are you'll be pretty good with it. Now we're going to get into her talents. The first one's a cooking one. We don't care about the, we don't care about this talent on the characters. Some of you guys will be like, oh, cooking. But yeah, for the most part, nobody really cares. The second one is when she goes into stance when her E is activated. And it's over. Once you get out of her E, once it's deactivated, all allies in the party will have their crit rate increased by 12% for 8 seconds. Excluding her. She cannot buff herself like that. So whenever it's all over, like whenever she gets out of stance, everybody gets a 12% crit rate buff. Big whoopee. It's going to be really good. It's going to help out some people, especially whenever you get into her C4. It might be a little bit overkill if you already have a good building or character, but somebody like my Kuching, that would buff her up to 60% crit rate, and plus if I go into her ult, it would buff me all the way up to 75% crit rate. So there are going to be situations where it's really good. It's going to let you stack more of the crit damage. And like I said, it's going to make her more the sub DPS like I talked about. And then probably her most important passive, her second one, when Hu Tao's HP is equal to or less than 50%, her pyro damage bonus is increased by 33%. With this, along with Crimson Witch, is going to allow her to reach really, really high numbers. Assuming how well she can control Crimson Witch's second passive, I don't know yet, but in the end, you're still going to want it because the extra damage on elemental reactions, because she's going to be Pyro, so Pyro has OP elemental reactions. So Crimson Witch is probably still going to be your best bet. Constellations, while in stance, Hu Tao's charge attacks do not consume stamina. Very first Constellation is really good. My biggest gripe with Kuching is whenever I used her in Abyss and I would charge attack to try to bring out a lot of damage, it would consume all my stamina, then I couldn't dodge and I would just get ragdolled around until I died. And I never really liked that gameplay loop. So the first Constellation, it not consuming stamina, is really, 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 really good. Second Constellation increases the Blood Blossom damage by the amount equal to 10% of Hu Tao's max HP at the time the effect is applied. Very, very strong because remember, Hu Tao scales off HP. Additionally, Spirit Soother, her ult, will also apply the Blood Blossom effect on hit. Now, the main thing to remember about this is Blood Blossom only deals tick damage while she's in, so this is more so like you activate your E, you run for a couple seconds, and then you pop the ult and you run for some seconds more, or you would like activate your E, immediately pop ult, and then go nuts because you already used your 30% of HP. So yeah, that'd be another way to use the Constellation 2. Constellation 2, pretty good, but it's not like, amazing because she needs to be in for Blood Blossom to actually deal damage. And then Constellation 3, of course, it increases Guide to the Afterlife, which is stance by 3, which is really good actually. Constellation 4, whenever Hu Tao defeats an enemy that has Blood Blossom applied to them, this is once again the effect that you can apply via charge attacks while in your stance, or via the ult if you have Constellation 2, which if you have Constellation 4, I imagine you have Constellation 2, right? We'll have nearby allies, once she defeats an enemy that's in Blood Blossom, or that's affected by Blood Blossom, nearby allies in the party will have their crit rate increased by a further 12% for 15 seconds. So this stacks along with the passive at 24% crit rate, which is really huge. And once again, Hu Tao cannot buff herself this way. So she doesn't get any of this crit rate, so you still got to build Hu Tao just like any other DPS. I'll get into my Hu Tao build some other day. And then her C6, Good and bad. I'm iffy on this C6. I'm up in the air. I used to think it was really good, but the more I've scaled my damage, the more I've hyper invested in the Chow, and I see how long in-game fights actually last. I'm iffy on this one. But triggers when Hu Tao drops below 25% or she suffers a lethal strike. Basically, she drops down to 1 HP. It gets stopped for a second. But this doesn't make her immortal the next hit. If you can't like heal her up fast enough, the next hit she's gonna die. But Hu Tao will not fall as a result of the damage sustained. Like I said, the one hit. Additionally, for the next 10 seconds, this is an immortality. This is everything I'm about to say applies for the next 10 seconds, not the immortality. It applies for one hit. All of her elemental and physical res is increased by 200%, her crit rate is increased by 100%, and her resistance to interruption is greatly increased. The effect triggers automatically when Hu Tao has 1 HP left, can only occur once every 60 seconds. So it can only occur once every minute. If you guys are in game, your characters are extremely built up, you know, fights tend to not even last a minute. Fights tend to be much, much shorter than that. So this is going to be, like, C6, in my opinion, is definitely not something worth chasing, but yeah. So basically, I'm going to wrap it up now. If you guys have skipped all the way to the end of this video, this is going to be the TLDR of how Hu Tao plays. Basically, with Hu Tao, what you're going to do is you're going to keep her as a sub DPS. You're going to swap her in, you're going to go into stance, you're going to charge attack immediately to apply Blood Blossom, that way enemies have Blood Blossom on them. Then you're just going to do normal attacks, so, you know, she might be good with Gladiator, we'll see. But you're going to do normal attacks immediately, start hitting up normals, and try to work on building up ult. And then after 9 seconds, you're going to swap her out, and whenever you swap her out and you exit that stance, all your teammates are going to get a 12% crit rate buff while she's on the bench. And then after another 7 seconds, after you cycle in your other DPS or you cycle in your supports, after you cycle everybody through, you can swap her back in, go right back into stance, and repeat the same process over and over. And she's going to be really good with, you know, Vaporize, Melt, Gone using Cho. She's not really going to work with Chongyun because the Pyro can't be overridden. But yeah. Anyways, this is kind of like the Hu Tao video. Hopefully this helps some of you guys out. Hopefully I gave you guys a good TLDR. Whenever you're building Hu Tao, you're going to want to build her like a standard DPS, which is crit rate, crit damage, helmet, depending on your substats, whatever you need. Crit rate, crit damage, helmet. You're going to want a pyro damage percent goblet. Going to want an HP percent Sands because she scales hard from HP, and having attack percent doesn't really help her with their low base attack because attack percent only really affects base attack, and because her base attack's going to be low regardless, attack percent is in the way. So you're going to want an HP percent Sands, and then you're just going to build her like a standard DPS beyond that. Anyways, guys, hopefully this helps you guys all out as far as everything goes. Yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Peace.